Hey y'all, I'm Jen Kundert, and I want to take a few minutes to tell you why I joined Color Street. I am going to try not to cry. This is not the first time I've attempted to record this. So I don't love talking about it, but I think this is important. I have a history of severe depression and several anxiety disorders that often made it impossible for me to leave my home. This began in my teen years. It was most severe in my 20s, and it continued into my 30s. I was unable to work, I was unable to function. I was hospitalized several times, and as much as I'd like to forget that any of that ever happened, I have decided to share this with you because I know that there are thousands of you out there who are just like me. And I think that you need to hear this. So I'm going to give you the abridged edition for the sake of time. But if something I say resonates with you, then I welcome you to contact me directly. I'm not ashamed of my past. I mean, a few things maybe. It just requires a certain amount of context and explanation to even be believable. So there I was. I made it through high school. I went off to college. I eked out my bachelor's degree and then bombed out of grad school. You can't pass if you can't show up to class. They're kind of particular about that. My mid-20s were the worst years for me. I felt I had disappointed everyone who had ever known me. I felt I had failed myself. I mean, I was lost. I was broken. So I met my now husband just before my 30th birthday. And when things began to get serious between us, I begged him not to fall in love with me. I was certain I would destroy him. I would ruin his life. I would steal everything he had worked for. As much as I loved him and I wanted to be with him, I was sure that he'd eventually come to hate me and he'd leave me alone again. So Derek did not listen. Typical. And 2 years later, we got married. I was much better then. Not great, but okay. And for me, that was it. I was pretty confident that okay was as good as it was going to get. I still battled daily depression. I was waking each morning or afternoon with that just overwhelming sense of dread. I was paralyzed by anxiety. When I needed to be somewhere, I'd get out of the shower and to go get dressed, and I would just pour sweat. That actually still happens every once in a while. So if you ever see me looking a little shiny, that might be why. But the panic attacks made holding a job a nightmare. Just the simple obligation of being in a specific place for a given amount of time and not being able to leave was terrifying. It was debilitating. It was this pressure to keep up appearances. Anxiety like that is hard to understand if you've never experienced it. I would become physically ill. I had migraines, vomiting, muscle spasms. It was awful. So I would get a job. I would run on adrenaline for a while, and then I would crash emotionally and physically again and have to quit. And for every time this happened, I felt more and more worthless. And then I got pregnant. I had horrible morning sickness all day long, all 9 months. And a large part of that was probably anxiety as well. I was pretty miserable and I was frightened for my child. I still felt so wretched and I was afraid for her future. What if something happened to Derek? How would I provide for her? Even with his income, would her needs be met? Would we always struggle financially? So, Edie was born in February 2016, and everything changed for me. Everything. Obviously, the process of having a baby has a lot of physical repercussions, so there's that. It is also very likely that hormonal changes postpartum had a lot to do with this shift in my mental health, but it was more than that. My whole worldview was altered. Like, I had to get up in the morning because she needed me. It just didn't matter how I felt. She needed me, and I needed her. I needed to see myself through her eyes. This tiny, perfect, innocent new baby required my constant care to thrive, to survive. And she loved me with such a pure, profound emotion that she inspired me to love myself in a way that I never had. Nothing in my past mattered anymore. I had new purpose. I had a new life. So, awesome. Now what? I was not miraculously cured. I still struggled, but I knew that I had to do something to improve our quality of life and take some of the financial strain off of my husband. We knew that we might like to have a second child someday, and kids are expensive. I also knew that there was absolutely no way I was going to put her in childcare and go back to an office job. I couldn't do it. It wasn't what was best for her, and it wasn't what was best for me. So I started investigating direct sales options. This is 2016, remember, so Color Street doesn't exist yet. I finally decided on a relatively new company, very trendy at the time, and I convinced my loving husband to invest in me. He really is amazing, and he never doubted me, even when he probably should have. And so it began. Now, so fast forward 1 year, I've been surprisingly successful. I think I shocked myself more than anyone else. I've made good money, but something is missing for me professionally. I couldn't bring myself to want to build a team with my previous company. I just had some reservations and I just couldn't justify it. That's all I'll say about that. It also demanded so much of my time and energy that I worried that Edie was paying the price, which defeated the whole purpose for me. So by this point, after a year in direct sales, I've taught myself everything there is to know about social media marketing. So obviously not everything, never everything, but a lot of things. And far too many of them I had to learn the hard way on my own. I had become fairly disillusioned, but I just didn't really see a solution. Enter Color Street. Was this really happening? A chance to get in on the ground floor of the next big beauty brand. This was the opportunity to build my small business the way that I wanted to and to help others do the same. Sign me up. Color Streets gives me the flexibility I need and wasn't finding elsewhere in direct sales. I have the freedom to make my own schedule and write my own paycheck. What's even more exciting to me is this amazing opportunity to take these tools that I've been honing and share them with you. You do not have to learn this the hard way. My goal is to be constantly acquiring new skills and gathering useful resources. Goodness knows, Facebook changes every time I blink, so there is always more to master. And I pride myself on providing exceptional team training. It is literally my job to help you succeed, and I genuinely enjoy it. It took me so long to finally believe in myself. Let me teach you to have faith in you too. Thank you so much for listening to my story. Please reach out to me if you'd like to know more.